Good evening. I'm Lisa Feeley with An Accountable Catholic, and thank you for joining our show this evening. So, as followers of Jesus and believers of a greater God, I feel like we really need to make sure we focus on being accountable and using our talents that God gave us to help our brothers, our sisters in our community. And in doing so, we have great guests on this show that really want to share their knowledge with all of us. So I hope you will enjoy tonight's show. It's going to be kind of one of a tough love one, I think. It's about humility and the lessons we'll learn by being humble. And so what a welcome. In fact, I'll welcome him back. He was on an earlier show for us, Jim Fongheiser. Thank you, Jim, for joining us again.
Thank you, Lisa.
Really glad to have you. Will you, in case someone missed an earlier show, will you share with our listeners kind of your journey and how you got to be where you are? I know you'd be obviously a Catholic and a great dad. And I'm going to say fellow business consultant, but I know you don't like yourself to that, but I'll let you tell that story as well. But thank you for joining us tonight.
Thank you, Lisa. Well, I came from small town and went to Villanova University and studied biology, went into research for a while. And well, biology for a reason. I was always fascinated with all of nature, all of life. And I didn't know what I would do with that. I had no idea at the time. So I let that take me where it did and did some research for a while, and then ended up in nuclear power as a radiation protection specialist, developing programs for them. But so that gave me the opportunity then, with stability, to do other things that are important to me in life too, which would be to pursue that Catholic Christian search for God. Become, you mentioned I was a father. I have 3 children, one of each. They hate when I say that. So now,
and all the way from Pennsylvania, right? So you're joining us
all the way from Pennsylvania, near Philadelphia now. Yes. So lots of life experiences. If you pay attention, there's lots of things to learn as you get older. So that's where I'm at now.
I don't like to say the old world. We're just more mature, and I hope a little more wise. I hope. So experience, right? So this topic that you and I are going to discuss, I'm not gonna fib and say it's a favorite one. It's always been a challenge. I think I would hope and believe that many people are challenged by being as humble as we need to be. But I'm really excited to have you on the show and share, I guess, your thoughts on humility and the lessons we should learn. I like to kind of turn to the Bible for a second and read. Of course, I'm doing it off our good apps these days, but humility is often characterized as, genuine gratitude, modest view of oneself. And then the Bible definition is that humility is critical and continuous emphasis of godliness. And we are called to be humble followers of Christ and trust in the wisdom and salvation of God. So if we believe, what I take away from trying to be humble is, if we truly place all our faith and love and belief in everything God has for us and his plan for us, we're not in control. We have to be humble. We have to be so thankful for everything he's bestowed upon us and his grace that, you can't, but I have a tough time with that, only because he also needs us to be confident and supportive and leaders down here. So I always struggle with, how do you be a really good leader and get everyone to follow you down a right path, but make sure you can't be too confident, or, someone's going to call you arrogant, or someone's going to think you're not humble. It's like, okay, this is not a win-win for me. I tend to be a little outgoing, and so it's harder. But what do you think are the main lessons that we should learn, Jim, from humility?
Well, with that topic, there's a kind of a wide range. So we should always come from a place of humility, but we need to be confident and have our own faith in our own abilities, including the faith in the support around us. So what I find is that it's the twists that we get dealt when we think that we're in control, that we find something that we have to realize that sometimes we just aren't. And so I see those as lessons in humility, and they're around us all the time. They can be small, but they're there pretty much day to day for us. So a lot of times it can be a simple thing with work where we think, so for what I do, sometimes I'm out in the field where I may have to teach a class or address a problem. Either it could be anywhere from truck drivers that deal with the radioactive material or doctors who are dealing with treating patients. And so sometimes when I go into those situations, I feel like I have it completely under control. And then something out of nowhere comes, and it is, that's the lesson in humility, when you feel like you're really not what you thought you were. But if you can change gears a little bit, generally, if you can admit what you know and what you don't know, then you can fix some of that. And often I think of this, our sphere of influence. Well, a sphere of influence is supposed to give you the sense of what you're able to change around you. But you have to remember that you're in the center of that. And to be able to do that well, you have to be very confident in what you know, but also understand what you don't know. And that's where a lot of the lessons in humility come from, is where we forget that. We think we can do something that we can't.
And we don't take the time, you and I chatted on an earlier show, you don't take the time to slow down. I mean, there is so much going on in our world today. We're moving at warp speed. I love how you said it. We wake up, first thing we have is our phone. Last thing we see is our phone. We're constantly on social media. Sometimes I think a lot of people don't leave room for God at all to be much less trying to be humble and, slow down. How do you think, in your mind, does humility tie into making sure you're also, I guess, have moral values, be a moral Christian leader? I mean, I guess in this show, we're trying to also help people with lessons of moral leadership and accountability as Catholics and as Christians. How do we help others learn lessons like humility? I mean, how does that all tie in as a leader, I guess?
Well, I think it's a lesson that they learn by example, that best of all, because the opposite of humility is arrogance, and nobody likes that. They're repelled by it. They might be attracted to the glitter and the shine that comes with some of that, but they would tire of that after a while. So to me, the lesson is that it comes with a big dose of listening to other people as well. So I think it was my grandfather who told me long ago, you never learn anything while you're talking. So to listen is part of humility. To make someone else feel important enough to be heard is very important. I love our little vignette. I love the little wisdom. I don't know what you want to call them that we get from our grandparents or parents or stuff. I look back, and my parents always taught us, God gave you 2 ears and 1 mouth. There's a reason for that. You're supposed to listen twice as much as you talk. And as an outgoing little kid, that wasn't as easy for me. But I do think, I love your stories. I also think we learn humility not just by watching, but back to listening as well, even from children, right? Sometimes they'll tell it just like it is, and you just think you think you have it under control. I found myself when I was a young mom, I really wanted my kids to, it was terrible, probably be perfect in their grammar and stuff. And I remember teaching one time, I kept trying to teach them that it's, you say Susie and I, or John and I, or whatever, Jim and I are going somewhere, not me and or Jim and me or whatever. And so I'll never forget one of my daughters came in. She was probably 5.5 or 6. And I guess I had been, harping to teach them this lesson, because you've got to get all this right. And so I said, Carrie, you can't say Susie and me. It's Susie and I, Susie and you. She says, you had nothing to do with it. You weren't even there. That's great.
Okay. I give up on that lesson. So, you have to sit back and laugh at yourself maybe, and really listen to others and watch others. And I love that. So I think being humble we have to be called to do that. But at the same time, like you said, I don't think you want to mix up confidence. You've got to have confidence in the ability that God gave you, but let other people take leads and learn.
Exactly.
Right. Well, so do you have any particular lessons that you'd share from humility in your life and or share with others that are listening in on, again, the importance of humility and how to recognize when maybe you're not being as humble, and how we can teach our children, or how we can, you call it, I think, sphere of influence. I have circle of influence. I mean, but yeah, they're everyone around us, right, that we're called to support.
Mm-hmm. Well, I find there's many opportunities for this, and if the personal growth that we have sets in right, it will be an example to others. And every once in a while, things happen that I find I'm almost compelled to tell others about because of how moving it was to me. There was a time that I had to go on a work trip, and it was far. I had to go well into West Virginia, up in the mountains of West Virginia, and then on to Toledo, which is far. But up in the mountain of West Virginia, I got to this work site, and there was a trailer with one woman in it. And I hadn't seen that ever before. And I got out and I went in and I said hello. And the next thing out of my mouth was, "Who are we praying for today?" Now, I don't know this person. I don't even know why I said that, because that's not the way I would normally meet somebody. And that seems a little presumptuous. Well, she started to cry. And it just broke down a barrier, like this little personal barrier that everybody has. They protect themselves. And she told me her sister had cancer, and we talked for an hour and a half. And I don't know how to fix that, but to listen to her and give her the space to talk, and to let her know that people cared, and to promise her that I and others with me would pray for her sister and for her family. It was very moving for me. And I had never seen her before, and I didn't have any follow-up contacts, any reason to. But about a year later, I had to go back there. And I walked into that trailer, and she was beaming. She said, "I could not wait until you could come back." And she could have called or written or whatever, but she didn't, and told me all how her sister's cancer was miraculously cured. And so we're talking about humility, but I'm telling you that was the most humbling thing to me, to go through that, thinking like I walked in there like I knew something. I didn't know anything, and all I had to do was listen and be supportive.
I love it. And two or more, ask in their name, right? And you shall receive. I think that's a very humbling. I don't know if you saw this, and I don't even remember the name of it, but years ago there was a very viral video that was going around. It was an ad, and it kind of done as an ad initially, or a campaign from a hospital. This way before, the pandemic we were in or whatever. This is like maybe 2.5, 3 years ago. And I was literally at a conference, Jim, and we're watching, this one CEO of a hospital said, "Hey, here's what we should all be thinking about." And he was kind of starting his keynote speech with this 3-minute video. There must have been 150 of us in the room. And at the end of that 3-minute video, there was not a dry eye in the house. And the whole video was, to your point, family members and, hospital assistants, administrators, nurses, doctors, all walking with patients down a hallway, a husband wheeling a wife in with a wheelchair. And what happened was they'd put bubbles over all their heads as to what they were thinking. And yet then someone's approaching them, right? You're coming into a room, you're coming in a hallway, you're rushing for the elevator. You have no idea what's going on in that person's life. And so what he was saying is, and he kind of went into a speech of, could you imagine a world where if we would all just pause and think for a second, what's going on in that other person's life, instead of being maybe rude or snappy or, I'm just there to do a job. I mean, you could have gone to that place and said, "Hey, I'm this fancy engineer, biotech, whatever, everything that you do that is just amazing. I'm here to get this done, do this, 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 and this, and here's what we need to do." I mean, that's correct. I mean, so I think that says a lot about your character and integrity, and I love it. And I think that's the lessons we should learn from this. And that's what I hope everyone who's listening and who enjoys this is just to think about, how can we be more humble? How can we, be more pensive and think and talk less and listen more and all those things to help us get there. So, well, we are going to have to take a short break here, and we'll be back after the break in about a minute. Thank you so much, Jim. Stick with us.
Thank you.
Carolina Catholic Radio is excited to announce an alliance with Lisa Feeley, author of An Accountable American. Her new book offers a blueprint to every person who wants to embrace how to be accountable. Learn how positively to impact your life and the lives of anyone around you. 50% of the book profits will be donated to a local 501c3 Catholic charity, including Carolina Catholic Radio and those affiliated with us. 2020 was a tough year for many people. Consider donating to charity by buying a copy of An Accountable American, just $20 on our website. Achieving accountability is a great way to start the new year. If you want to learn how to achieve enlightenment, peace, and prosperity, this is a great start. Now back to An Accountable Catholic Radio show.
Hi, Lisa Feeley, and we're back again after break. So thank you, Jim. Okay, well, we tippy-toed a little bit into humility in our lessons learned, but now we're going to teach some really big lessons, or at least offer you to learn some lessons if they need to be learned. So I want to talk about how I think you do have to be a little humble, that you don't know it all and you don't know all the facts. And we know as Catholics and as followers of Jesus, there are some really objective truths. I mean, there's truths that we should be helping others better understand. But Jim, what do you do when you can't get anybody to listen because they're very emotional and they already know all their facts, or they don't want to pay attention? So we're going to talk about the topic in regards to this. Where am I going? Pro-life. So if you're pro-life and you're a Catholic or you're a Christian, you have to be pro-life. You really do. You can't sit here and ignore the fact that, I don't know, it's a terrible number, 60 million babies that have not been able to be born like God wanted, I think. So how does humility also fit into, sit down, especially with loved ones? I see so many families divided now, Jim. So many parents come to me all the time, honestly, when I'm traveling, when I wrote my book, and said, oh, I wished I could sit down with my 25-year-old or my 30-year-old and have the discussion of that's not, that is just not the best way to discuss this, because they're just too emotional and angry and divided. And so they just leave,
Yes. And that's what I see. I do spend a fair amount of my free time and resources working in the pro-life area. Wow. And it's interesting because it is sort of a third rail. And in our culture today, we're sort of guilted into accepting a lot of extreme positions on things. And this is one where I believe we can't really compromise on something like this. That doesn't mean that we can't communicate about it, but it has to be done in a certain way to reach people without compromise. That's the difference. That's the problem, because we can't compromise on whether it's right or wrong. At the same time, coming from a place of humility, we can try to respectfully educate people or counsel people. The centers that I work with a lot of women's centers to help provide ultrasound machines. And I'm amazed at some of what these people do. They're the people who get out of bed every day, throw their legs over the side and go out and do God's work, saving babies. But it's not enough just to save the life. You have to save the family. So it's a family thing. So when I have to have a discussion with someone who's pro-abortion, they don't say they're pro-abortion. They say they're for women's rights. Well, how can we have that discussion? If we respectfully and with humility can discuss it with them, can they have that discussion if we include the fact that this is not the woman's body we're talking about? There's a defined space between them, that person is unique, genetically unique. There's no crossover there. So we can have discussions, but they have to be able to be willing, if we're humble enough, be willing to listen to the truths. And like you said, some things are truths that we have to discuss. We can't, how long can we look past something like that where we're allowing 900,000 plus abortions a year in the United States? And we're paying for them. Those of us who strongly disagree have to pay for them because they're funding Planned Parenthood that performs more than a third of those. So here I go. I'm rolling away from all my humility and getting all full of myself in my cause. But I know how important it is when talking to others to do it from facts.
I love how you said that. And that's, again, that's the part, like I said at the beginning of this, that I'll struggle with as well, because when I wrote my book, I did 450 hours research to have the facts. And then you line those facts up with God's truth, right? God's truth is God's truth. So, I mean, the struggle I have is we all need to be more humble. We need to remain calmer. And I think we have to do this from a place of logic and love. I like to say that, logic and love. If you love the person, if you care about the person, if you have their back, no matter what, you know, you're in this, you're their friends, or it's a circle of influence, it's a child, right? And you're trying to talk with them about something important, we have to all be willing to listen and talk and hear the truth. But there again, if you're Catholic or Christian, there is only one truth. You don't get to make up your own truth, you know? So to your point, when someone says, well, it's women's rights, no, that baby is the baby. I mean, that's, you know, that is a baby inside that God created for a purpose on this earth. And I just, you know, can we all slow down, calm down? And I do think you've got to be humble to hear each person out, but you have to be working with the same foundation that there are only one set of facts. And there's only one real truth if you claim that you're a follower of Jesus, I guess. I don't, yeah, I have a struggle without getting political. I have a struggle when you have an entire country being run by someone who claims to be very Catholic and yet allows some of the stuff to happen that is happening in our country right now that is complete antithesis of Catholicism.
True.
So,
and if we come from a place of arrogance, then that puts us in a position where we would be condemning people involved with abortion. If we come from a place of humility, then we would put our energies into educating, like we said, a respectful education, and also counseling, because these people are truly broken that go through this, and not just the women, but the men too. When they go through that process, that I've been reading a lot lately about what men go through, fathers who have lost babies this way, it puts a terrible spin on the family for them, for their future,
right,
forever. And that's the other thing, is that so tying back in accountability, which I associate with you now all the time. When I see the word, I think of Lisa. But
thank you.
So accountability. So why is this even an issue? If people are accountable, what I always told my children growing up is you can't do things for which you can't accept the consequences. You have to be prepared. So are we so selfish and maybe arrogant that we can't prevent things like that from happening? And or we can't live with consequences, so we just change it. Like, we can do something so drastic to change the consequence that it's inhuman. It's just hard for me to understand.
No, 1,000,000% agree. I love how you said that, because if you can be humble, I mean, I think that's a base foundation of also being accountable, because if you're not humble and you just think, oh, I can handle anything I want, I can do anything I want, I can go out and, I can go out and kill someone. No one cares. I can do this. I can do that. That's not humble. That's not humble. That's thinking that you're doing anything that you want to do, and it's only for you. You don't care about anybody else. And that's, to me, there's no difference in that and taking a baby's life. I mean, I'm sorry. I don't get the difference. So if you're not going to just allow me to go out and do whatever I want, whenever I want, which that's not a humble person. I mean, I don't know. It doesn't work. It's oil and water to me. So I love what you said on that. So in summary, really, can you think of, I'm going to put you on the spot, could you maybe think of 2 or 3 lessons that you would say if you and I were in front of maybe an audience of 1,000 younger, Christians or Catholics, what can we say to them of, if you're going to take away 2 or 3 lessons for learning from why it's important to be humble, and how does being humble help you to be more, I guess, listen more to God's word and be more accountable for using your life, your purpose, achieving your purpose in life? What would you say those are, Jim?
Well, I think that when you go back to your faith, hope, and charity, that if you look at humility tied to those, there really is. To have enough humility to have faith. Faith says that you can't do everything, that you have to depend on God for everything, for giving us, for granting us, first of all, life, which is sacred to us, but also even the authority that's held over us through our governments, that all things come from God. So I kind of went too far around in a circle there and lost myself. But a lesson in humility, I think, starts with our relationship with God through faith, hope, and charity. That's a start, and maybe you can embellish that a little bit. I don't know.
I love it. So, I mean, I heard you said earlier also that we need to listen, right? We need to listen with the ability to help someone, but we have to kind of know where they're coming from first, and to educate them. So I think, again, if we'll slow down, I think the more noise we have around us also does not allow us to make time for being humble, right? Because you're looking at all these things on the radio and mainstream media, and they just tell us we're perfect, don't they, Jim? I mean, I'm just perfect. I don't like this, I'm going to change this. I don't like the way something looks, I'm just going to, go pay someone to change it for me. It's so I think if I could summarize kind of what I heard you say, it's, starts with God. I agree. It starts with having faith, grace, listen, slow down, and do it from a point of love too, right? When you're talking with someone, to try to educate them, but it can't be for, I'm smarter than you. That's opposite of humility. I'm going to tell you what to do because you're wrong. That's not going to work.
I can add one thing to that. I've always told my children this, to be humble and show that you care about people. Sometimes you need to ask questions. And so even in this, if you ask the right questions, you can make people think. Rather than tell them the answers, you ask the right questions, and it's very helpful.
Love it. You're going to make everything be able to come back to being a master black belt, because one of the best tools we use is 5 why. I'm sure you've heard of the tool and what you do. It's asking why 5 times so that the person answering the question can really think about what's the real foundation of what we're trying to do, right? And are we using or seeing or doing something ambiguous? And for Lean Six Sigma, it's ambiguous data, right? If we're not getting to the crux of the matter, and that's the same in life. I really think it is. If you ask questions, slow down, we can be more humble. I think those are great lessons to learn in humility. So I hope everyone learned some good lessons for tonight's show. Loved having you, Jim, all the way again from Pennsylvania. You'll have to come visit us here in Charlotte one day.
Would love to.
Well, welcome again for everybody to join us at our next show, next Thursday night, 5:00. Thank you to all of you listening tonight. This is Lisa Feeley, kind of signing off this show as your host of Accountable Catholic. Thank you, Jim, again. God bless. Everybody go have a good week.